What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome to the show. I am super stoked to have you. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you can imagine. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Sarah, Quan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin for all their support. And if you want to join those fine folks and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you can become a patron for as little as $3 a month. That's less than $1 an episode. And if you do that, you'll get some sweet perks for your support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. This week's episode is brought to you by Figma Academy from Dive Club. Now, we talk a lot about soft skills here on the show, but don't forget, hard skills are just as important, and mastering tools like Figma is crucial. And back in episode 49, Tommy Joko mentioned knowledge debt and how you'll pay for learning either with your time or your money. And if you don't have time to learn Figma on your own, Figma Academy is your fast track to mastering Figma, and you'll be in good hands too. Over 4,000 designers from industry leaders like Shopify, Microsoft, and Amazon have already signed up. The course is hands-on. You'll be part of a talented cohort of designers. Plus, they host live Q&A sessions every Thursday to clear up any questions that you have. You want your company to foot the bill? Lots of designers have done just that, and Figma Academy even offers an expense template to make it a breeze to get approval from your boss. And because you're all awesome listeners, I've teamed up with Figma Academy to offer you a $100 discount. Just head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/Figma. Use the promo code BeyondUX when you check out. So I've got somebody I'm really excited to have on the show today. One, Grace Ling, founder of Design Buddies. You may have heard of them. They're kind of popular. Grace is really awesome at social media and LinkedIn, and she brings a special. She brings her own special approach, her own special approach to networking on LinkedIn. I'm really excited to talk to her about LinkedIn. As most of you guys know out there, that's the only place I go. I don't mess with Twitter and TikTok and all that stuff. So I'm kind of like all in on LinkedIn, and I love what Grace is doing over there. Grace is a UX designer, a founder, and illustrator. She leads the charge at Design Buddies, a thriving community that she founded that boasts over 60,000 members dedicated to honing design skills and securing jobs. She brings her expertise to electronic arts as a UX designer, where she develops products aimed at creators. A Silicon Valley native, Grace's journey in design is self-taught, underpinned by her academic background in bioengineering and computer science and engineering. And before diving into the world of design, she was involved in creating virtual reality games, focusing on surgical training and making science education engaging, which I think I know where she found how to keep LinkedIn the same. Her entrepreneurial spirit also led her to run an art business and tabled at anime events, which, by the way, I didn't know what that was. I had to ask Grace. An avid traveler, Grace's exploration have taken her to more than 30 countries, and her notable achievements and unique perspectives have garnered attention, leading to features in prominent media outlets like New York Times Square, the Wall Street Journal, KTSF, KQED, the San Jose Mercury News, and more. Grace, welcome to Beyond UX Design. I am so excited to have you on. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on. I've been a big fan of your podcast and love the interviews y'all do with other creators too.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm honored to have you on. And like I said, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is you have this special approach to LinkedIn. And I don't know if, I think you mentioned this or someone, you're like known as like the girl who dances on LinkedIn or something like that. And I just love how, LinkedIn is such a stuffy, or traditionally at least, was such a stuffy place. And there's people just, sign up for LinkedIn and they only update their profile when they get laid off or they're looking for a job. But it's an engaging, thriving social media community that I feel like a lot of people are just sort of ignoring because it's traditionally seen as like old white dudes in suits. And you were bringing and just incredible new energy to the space. And I just love following you and engaging with you on LinkedIn. So tell me a little bit about, we've talked a little bit, I read your bio, obviously. You got a lot of stuff there, but I would love to hear a little bit about you, your background, and ultimately, how'd you get to be, such like a force on social media and LinkedIn especially?
Yeah, growing up, I was born and raised in Silicon Valley, and a lot of the
That's cool,
parents,
by the way.
teachers,
Yeah. Most people move to Silicon Valley. Not a lot of people like grow up there,
Yeah, I still live there. I love it here.
Yeah.
It's interesting. As a kid going to school, everyone was like, you got to be a doctor, engineer, or lawyer in order to be like what society deems as success. And I was always really rebellious. And I was a class clown. I actually got sent to the principal's office so many times because of my random jokes. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I was a troublemaker. I just love making people laugh and feel entertained since I was like in elementary school. I just thought school, in my opinion, for me, I struggled a lot with school because I feel like like school we're taught to like follow instructions and get
Mm,
measured based on how much you memorize things, and like
mm,
my brain ain't vibing with that. I just love making people laugh and feel entertained, which carries on to like how I carry myself on LinkedIn,
yeah.
social media, and Design Buddies today. Um, but like my background is actually because like I was also influenced by society a little bit, and I was an avid cross country and track runner in high school. I really wanted to like be a professional runner, and so I studied bioengineering because I want to learn how to biohack myself to run faster because
Wow.
of that.
Yeah, that's
But
cool. Yeah.
thank you. I branded it as pre-med to sound prestigious, but like I just wanted to
Why not?
yeah,
I mean, it's kind of pre-med. Like, what does pre-med even
it's
mean, really?
fancy.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
That's
But like,
hilarious.
thank you. But then I did all the internships. Like honestly, like I hate memorizing things. I think it's like so annoying.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like I didn't really like that aspect of medicine. So like I switched over to computer science engineering because I had to make games. Like I didn't really care about coding. I just want to make games, like the best games ever. And I needed to code. I
Hmm.
had to make games, but like I like didn't really after doing a couple like software engineering internships and game dev internships, I was like, my brain ain't thinking that way. Like code is like hard. It's like I'm very
Yeah.
visual. Like I like talking to people. I visualize things and I found it like very too abstract for my brain to handle that. So I like UX design because it combines like my interest in like art. I always liked to draw growing up and then science, engineering. And then plus honestly like I love like combining like art and science, but also it pays very well in tech without needing to code, which I loved. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
why? But how I kind of mature myself on social media is because like I started posting on LinkedIn honestly because I wanted a job. And when I was
Yeah.
career pivoting to UX design, I didn't have any network in UX design, and like all the hiring managers, design leaders, they hang out on LinkedIn. So I was like, all right, gotta use LinkedIn. So this was
Go
2020.
where go where your audience
Um,
is. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Our target audience, optimizing them. But like kind of a bit more of my background is since 2014, I've actually been creating content for like over 10 years now on the internet, which is crazy to think
Oh wow.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in high school. I actually sucked at writing, like my language arts skills were grades were like trash. And I was like, I started writing on Tumblr. I had this blog called I Run
Yeah.
Grayspace because running was such a huge part of my life. And I was like, I'll just write about what's going on in my life and running's going on. So I just like posted on Tumblr. I remember talking about like how like stressed out I was about school, how much I loved running, how I was stressed out about the competition. And like I was just like sharing a lot of like stories about myself. And suddenly like I think like 8,000 people followed me within a year and I was getting like brand deals
Wow.
on
Damn.
Tumblr. Which is crazy. Like I like
Yeah.
from writing on the internet because like I wanted to prove my skills. I didn't want to write into the void. So I was like, I'll just like dump my thoughts on Tumblr. It feels like pretty anonymous and like no one really knows. But like it was like really fun. I expected my favorite part of it was being able to improve my skills but also connect with others through content creation. So I later carried
Yeah.
that
I love that.
energy to like Instagram and LinkedIn, and then 2020 it was during COVID, and before 2020, I felt like LinkedIn was such like an intimidating place. It's where people be like, "I'm excited to announce I landed fancy software general at a fame
Sure.
company,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
meanwhile here I'm like, I feel like a small potato. Like, what is this place?
Yeah.
Um, but like for me, I always like to be different. Like I was always rebellious. I was like, then I see the norm. I was like, all right, how can I go against the norm? And
Hmm.
so I just like started posting about like what I'm doing. I think my first post that went viral was actually I posted how I got Zoom bombed at a first Design Buddies meetup. And that post like got viral. It's like, oh wow, this is
Wow.
like pretty vulnerable, and people like resonate with that. I was just posting like how I learned like how to like do meetups, like what I learned after my Zoom meetups and stuff. Um,
Hmm.
and I started sharing like what I'm learning, what I'm doing, what I'm struggling with, what I'm excited about on LinkedIn. So it's been about 4 years now posting regular LinkedIn.
Oh
And I
wow.
just
Okay.
experiment with a lot of different types of content. And I feel like for me, the why I like to be different on LinkedIn is like I'm not afraid of rejection and like trolls. I feel like
Yeah.
I don't know. They're like, I can't please everyone. Not everyone's my target audience.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
just want to
absolutely.
make, I just want to meet people who are fun. So I put out my own energy who are fun, so I can connect with people who are fun.
I love that though, because that's the thing. Like one of the things I was going to ask you, and you mentioned it already, but what's kind of wrong? What would you find wrong with LinkedIn? And you mentioned like the it's very stuffy. Like I always like to call like old white dudes in suits that just like like I'm proud to announce the promotion of my VP of blah blah blah. And it's funny because like so many people just assume that and they still think that way. And I think LinkedIn has definitely changed a lot just in the last year. And I've only been posting on LinkedIn really for a year. I've been like kind of the same as everybody else. Like I'd only update my profile when I needed a new job or whatever. And I think there's so many things like especially people like you that are using LinkedIn to teach in an engaging way. And that's something like you mentioned this in your bio. You mentioned this when you were talking a minute ago. You were really bored in school and like the kind of memorizing things. And I think when we think about, things like the humor effect or the bizarreness effect, things that are sort of weird and wacky and out of place, we remember those things more. And a lot of people, like old stuffy people, like that's not professional. Like, you can't post that on LinkedIn. Like, it's funny because I feel like so many people miss the point though, that doing those things, it stands out, it's unique, but it also helps you retain information in a more compelling way. And I think like it's funny because you mentioned like you didn't do well in school. I went to Catholic school and I went all the way from kindergarten all the way up to senior year in high school. And it was, shut up, sit down, stand up straight, like shave your, cut your hair, all that stuff. It's so serious, and you couldn't talk, you couldn't do anything like that. But my kids, they go to Montessori school, which is funny because it's like it's so different. It's like explore what you want to explore and you learn in an engaging way and it's more fun. And my kids love learning, and I see so many parallels, I think, between like that Montessori concept. And I think a lot of people miss that, but that Montessori concept and things that you and like other people who are engaging on social media, are doing, and it's helping people though. That's the thing. Like so many old stuffy shirts, they just like, they forget that, they miss that, or I don't know if they forget it, they don't even realize it. I don't know. It's just not what they're used to, but who cares? Like, it doesn't matter, I don't know. I'm just curious what you're thinking there. Like if that's something you've ever kind of thought about is like using those kind of unique and quirky things to engage and teach. Is that something you've
Yeah.
ever thought about? Is it conscious or is it just like your personality? I'm curious.
It's just personality. I grew up, I was always like that. And I was like rebelling. Like I was always like, I like kind of going against the grain. 'Cause I feel like normal is boring. That's always something I had growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, when people tell me I can't do something, I'm like, all right, why not? So like I live life asking for forgiveness more than asking for permission, as long as it's legal.
Yes. Yeah.
So I
I
just
love that.
do it. Like I don't really think about, for me, like as long as I'm not harming anyone or doing something that's not like not legal, then I will just do whatever. And I
Yeah.
don't want to like change myself to fit into any platform because I feel like not everyone's my target audience. I feel like y'all don't live life for other people. You live life for yourself. And as long
Mm-hmm.
as you put yourself out there, you will attract people who are similar to you. And so for me, I like connecting with fun people on LinkedIn. So I put out fun energy. So I attract fun people and like whoever is boring, like I don't want to meet them anyways. I don't care. So that's why I do
Yeah.
that. I'm curious, like what made you want to start posting on LinkedIn a
Yeah,
year
it's
ago?
funny because I actually had Trevor Nielsen on not long ago, and I credit Trevor with the reason why I post on LinkedIn pretty regularly. So, I have this podcast. I've been doing the podcast for like since October of last year. So, and I had a podcast before that, which I did for a couple of years. Started before COVID, and I would just go on LinkedIn and just post, Tuesdays or Thursdays, whatever it was. Like I have a new episode, and nobody would, maybe like my friends, my wife every once in a while would like it. It was like a couple of likes. Like clearly it didn't resonate with really anybody, and the downloads really kind of showed that, to be honest. Like it wasn't really increasing. It was the same number of people every time. And it wasn't until Trevor and I had a conversation actually, and he was like, people know you're selling stuff. Like people get that. Like they can tell you're just trying to sell your shit to them. And I was like, damn, dude. I was like, shit, you're so right. And that was, Trevor was like, you need to post other stuff, like post helpful things, post things that aren't just you giving back, essentially. That was really when I started kind of posting regularly on LinkedIn, was like to give back, not in a selfish way, because obviously, I mean, the point is to get people to listen to the show, but it's also to give back. It's to engage. It's to help other people. and to do that. And so, but again, to your point, it wasn't, it was like trying to be kind of interesting and entertaining at the same time, so that it wasn't just like some academic sounding, report, or you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So that's kind of where I kind of started. And it's funny because like it started off in sort of a selfish kind of way for me to like and get people to listen to my stuff. Like I wanted them to come to me. Mm-hmm. But what I found was that doing that, I met so many like amazing people just on LinkedIn alone, and these people, there's way more people out there in Twitter and everywhere else, Instagram and stuff. But I just met so many like amazing people. And, like you, friend, I mean, you through LinkedIn, like I've met so many people just from doing it. And then that became the reason why I do it now, is to meet more people, to obviously they're still in the background, like wanting people to listen to the show. But that's a secondary thing. Like that comes along with the networking, does that make sense? I don't know. It kind of started off as sort of a selfish thing, obviously, but then like over time it evolved into like I'm here for the party kind of thing,
Yeah.
Like I'm here for the laughs, you know what I mean? I don't know.
I resonate with that a lot. Yeah.
Cool.
That's cool on LinkedIn as well. And then like the more friends I make, more thing I can learn from other people, help each other, and like more opportunities as well, ultimately. But
absolutely.
Fun. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing. Even if we were all posting really smart, engaging, intelligent things, if it was just that, I don't think that many people would stay engaged over time. Like they would get what they need and then they move on somewhere else. And like the ultimate goal is to not get followers. The ultimate goal isn't to get downloads on the podcast. And the ultimate goal, I feel like for me, the ultimate goal is community. And, obviously for some people it's to make money, it's to, pay their bills and things like that. But the community piece, I feel like, is so important for us as the people who are sharing information, but also the people who are learning information, because it keeps them wanting to come back and wanting to learn, and I think that's what like all those like old shirts of people who like look down on content creators, I don't think they realize the value in the engagement piece. Like it's valuable for the learners. It's not there to just like get the dopamine hit of the like. It's there to make those people want to learn more, want to like have fun learning, and I feel like that's what so many people are missing, but I feel like that's what you and like other people are getting, I don't know if you ever thought about it that deeply, but that's kind of like where I've thought about this a lot. And that's sort of where I feel like it's like beneficial it's a mutually beneficial thing, because it's helps me get the money from like sponsorships, whatever, but it also helps people stay engaged and learn and want to keep learning.
Yeah.
Because UX design is such a hard thing. It's a hard job. It's very thankless often, and it's like, why would you keep doing this to yourself if you're not if you're like a masochist and you enjoy that stuff? But I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think of it as very similarly, because like I do a lot of things for fun, like not paid or anything, but also when I do things for fun, I enjoy my life, but also more opportunities come to me. So I think we can have both community, money, all like mutually benefit each other. It's not like mutually exclusive at all.
Exactly. And like, so just to clarify too, like the point of this episode today, it's not to talk about content creation. It's to talk about networking and using LinkedIn to build that community, to build your network, which ultimately is a safety net. And that's kind of how it's insurance. It's like, it helps you get the job, but once you don't have the job anymore, it helps you find another job, or it helps you get freelance work or whatever, right? And so it's mutually beneficial. And I think that's something that like so many people just forget it when they think of social media. They think of fun. They think of frivolous. Frivolous might be a good word to describe that. But I feel like that's the thing. It's not frivolous. It's actually beneficial for everybody. Now assuming you're sharing the right content. Like there's people out there that share bullshit, that share fake, misinformation, if you want to call it that, or other things that are there to just promote their own thing and they're lying to people or copying other people's stuff and it's not original. That's obviously not the kind of stuff we're talking about. But I don't know. I feel like there's so much to that, like just having fun and making it fun.
I agree. It's more sustainable in the long term, and I feel like life should be enjoyed. Like, don't change yourself. Don't change yourself for anyone else, because that's not fun, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, all right, here's a question. I'm curious. We talked a lot about like posting stuff on LinkedIn. Is there a line for you? Like, what would you not post? What would
Mm,
you say? Like, like I don't think I'd do. I wouldn't go that far. That you might though post on another platform, or maybe
yeah,
there is no line for you. Maybe you see them as the same.
so I kind of tweak my posts a little bit for like LinkedIn versus Twitter versus Instagram. Those are my three main platforms.
Hmm.
For LinkedIn, I try to focus my posts on something that would be like valuable. So whether that be like a practical skill, inspirational, motivational, like a story. And for Instagram, I like to post more like travel and lifestyle because I feel like LinkedIn people like there to like get inspired or want to learn something. On Instagram, it's like,
Hmm.
oh, I want to see where you travel to. So I do like travel stuff on
Okay.
Instagram, mainly. And I try not to like repost too much content because I know a lot of people follow me on like all platforms. I don't want them to get like bombarded with the same thing. And on
Yeah,
Twitter,
that's cool.
it's like more of my random fleeting thoughts. Um,
I love that.
like
Yeah.
yeah, like random, just random brain farts or random like thoughts I have. I do this on like Twitter and like Threads as well, and Facebook sometimes too. I still use that because I have a lot of like older friends who are on Facebook.
Yeah.
Um, so Instagram's more LinkedIn. Yeah, so like LinkedIn, I try to like gear it towards like people who want to learn or feel inspired. On Instagram, it's like, oh, more for fun, like what I'm doing, where I'm traveling to.
Yeah. I love that. So I'm curious about LinkedIn versus the others too. Is there like a professional sort of threshold where you say that's just not appropriate for LinkedIn? Is that ever something that crosses your mind? I'm
I feel
curious.
like as long as like for me, I've been through a lot of horror stories in my life, and as long as it doesn't harm anyone, I can post it. Like if I went
Okay.
through an experience, I always never mention any names anywhere.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't like name drop anyone.
Right.
Um, and I wouldn't, I feel like on Instagram, sometimes I go into more details, just because I feel like people who follow me, I have like a slightly smaller audience there as well. People who follow me, I had my Instagram for since like high school. So like people who follow me there have seen my journey longer. And on LinkedIn, it's like, oh, I've only been active since 2020. So these are mostly like my professional
Hmm.
connections. So I try to like remove some more like personal details as well. That's kind of like how I view it. I
Okay.
edit the
Yeah, that's
captions on
cool.
both ends.
That's really interesting. I love your approach to like treating them a little bit differently and stuff. And like I said, I only post on LinkedIn, but the reason why I post on LinkedIn more than anything else is I was really big on social media back in the day. Like I was in Facebook when like, before when it was even MySpace, like, or before before Facebook was really big. It was MySpace. I was on MySpace. I was on LiveJournal and stuff back in high school. This was like late 90s. And I used to be like big into that. And then Facebook when it was the Facebook and you had to have like a college email, back in the day. And then I was on Twitter when Twitter got, started when Twitter was big. And then like, I just got like so sick of social media. I'm like, I don't care about like the personal stuff. So like, I'm on, this is something too, I think I want people to think about is like, you shouldn't be on these social medias because you think you have to be. You should be
Hmm.
on them because there's a goal and there is an outcome that you're trying to hit, right? And so for you, your goal I think is a little different than like even my goal, and it would be very different from maybe some of the listeners' goals. So it's kind of interesting to kind of think about like just between us, like what like where we post and why we do it. But for me, it's like a lot of it is like the professional aspect of it. And so like I post just generally speaking like more, I don't want to just call it quote unquote professional versus personal because I kind of mix a lot. Like I'll have like interesting stories from like my personal life that kind of apply to UX design, but like I very rarely will post like I'm never going to post like pictures of my kids or, like something, whatever I cooked for dinner last night, where like on Twitter or Instagram or something, maybe I would have done that. You know what I mean? Um,
Hmm.
but it's like a goal. It's like having that outcome. Like, what are you doing it for? And the reason why I personally chose LinkedIn was because it's not anonymous. And I actually really appreciate that it's not anonymous because what I found is the anonymity on something like Twitter brings out the worst in us, I think, often. And you'll find like the animosity on Twitter is higher, the like vitriol on Twitter tends to be higher. People are just meaner because they can hide behind like a fake anonymous account. Whereas LinkedIn, it's like I can see where you work. I know who you work with. I know like who your colleagues are, and everyone can see that. And so it tends to, I think, lower the amount of like I don't know meanness. I don't know if there's a better word than that. But I'm kind of curious,
Yeah.
like from your perspective, like have you noticed that on LinkedIn versus Twitter, like these other places, like the trolls and stuff? There tends to be less like anonymous trolls on LinkedIn. I'm just curious from your perspective. Have you
Yeah.
noticed a difference or seen something like that? I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I feel like I can't remember any single negative comment I had on LinkedIn actually, or maybe I just
Yeah.
like didn't care enough to remember. Um, the weird, I feel like sometimes in my DMs, people like think LinkedIn's like a dating website, so that's like the weirdness of LinkedIn.
Oh, that's really
Yeah,
I want to dig into
yeah.
that a little bit. Keep going. Anyway, don't let me forget about that because I want to talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit.
yes, yes, I have crazy stories about that as well. But on Instagram and on Twitter, for me, like for me, I try to be as cancelable as I can. So I always say like in
Mm.
my opinion, in my experience, because people can't deny that because it's like my experience. So I try to like talk that way. That's why like I haven't really experience any like negativity. I guess the
Uh-huh.
example like negativity I would experience these days is like, oh, people say like Design Buddy sucks, but like I'll be like, tell me more. I want to know why it sucks. I kind of treat it as like feedback, like user feedback. But before, when I was on Tumblr, when I had the anonymous messages on, I got
Uh-huh.
trolls. Like I had. So I was like in a fitness community, and like in the fitness community, people take fitness and like nutrition, health very like personal. So like everyone has their own opinions, backgrounds about things. So like I would get a lot of comments about that as well, like running form and like anonymous
Uh-huh.
stuff. But
Yeah.
like I experienced the most like I guess like negativity when I had the anonymous inbox on Tumblr when I was a kid, which was like
Oh,
a
wow.
lot to deal with as a
Yeah.
kid.
I
But like
bet.
it taught me a
Yes.
lot.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like my parents said that like I was like posting too many things online and made me feel very exposed. I was like, oh, I'm just trying to help people. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I am actually kind of
Mhm.
terrified because my kids are 5 and 7, and they're
Mm.
too young for all that stuff now. But it's only a matter of time. Like I've got my 7-year-old already is like trying to connect with his friends on Roblox and like Minecraft and all this stuff, and I'm like, who are you talking to? Like like because he can like he can talk and chat and type and stuff, and I'm like, Jesus Christ! I was like, it's only a matter of time before we're gonna
It
have
was
like
me
the
on
hidden social
Neopets.
media account. Yeah.
That was
Oh, it's
me on
crazy.
Neopets at 7 years old. I was talking to,
Oh my
oh
God.
my God, like this is so random, but like on Neopets, like apparently MySpace was blocked and people kept asking for my MySpace. Like I thought I was like, I pretend I was like 13, I was like 7, and
Oh
they
my
wanted to like
God.
connect with me there. I didn't know what MySpace was,
Oh
and when
God.
I
That
asked my
like
people
terrifies me
like,
so much.
when I asked my parents, like, what's MySpace? I'm like,
Oh no. Oh my God. Yeah, that like terrifies me, honestly, like thinking about my kids doing that. Cause my have one kid, he's so honest, like he'll tell me everything, and my other one, he's the sneaky one. He's the one who like sneaks stuff, snacks, he's like, and he's the younger one too. So he sneaks stuff, he'll like hide stuff in his bag and like bring it up into his room and eat crap in his room he's not supposed to, and like take stuff to school he's not supposed to. And I'm just like, oh God, he's gonna be the one that's gonna be sneaking around with his
oh my
like,
God,
hidden
I'm the
TikTok
sneaky
account, I'm
one.
sure.
I'm the
Oh, that
sneaky
was you?
one. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. Well, so like here, I want to ask you a little bit. I want to
Yes.
pivot a little bit. Actually, no. Before we do that, I want to ask you real quick about this because this is something that I find mind-boggling. Because I feel like LinkedIn again, very professional. Like it's you can have fun, right? But there's a level of professionalism around the having fun part. And I've heard from so many women on LinkedIn that guys will message them the just most wildly inappropriate things like, hey, you're really pretty, like let's connect, or just stuff like that. And I'm just, that is something, you mentioned this, so I want to talk about this. Is that's something that happens to you
Yes, it
regularly?
does. Yeah, I just ignore
That
it though.
blows my mind that
Yeah.
men do that. I mean, I like to think of myself as somewhat of a feminist. My wife is like hardcore feminist, and she maybe has influenced me. But I feel like even before we just started dating, I was similar to this. But like, I just can never imagine ever at work, even like at a bar, even if I was single. Hey, you're really pretty. Like the pickup lines and stuff. Like, hey, like I was never that kind of dude, and it just sort of blows my mind that people do that on LinkedIn. And you mentioned that this happens. I'm just, if you're a dude listening right now, don't fucking do that. Like, just don't
Yes.
fucking do that. I don't know how else to say that. Don't fucking do that. It doesn't work.
Mhm.
It's so fucking sleazy, and oh God, that makes me angry that people do that. I'm sorry that you have to deal with that as a woman, and any woman listening, if you put up with that, I apologize on behalf of all men everywhere, even though I obviously can't control it. But is there anything you'd like to say about that? Like,
I was,
how does it make
you
you
know,
feel? I'm curious. How does it make you feel as a woman?
for me, because I put myself on the internet, I'm like very jaded, and so like I want to say like you don't owe anyone a response. You don't have to reply to everyone. You don't owe them anything. So you can just like block them if it makes you feel comfortable, or just ignore them. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, they don't have any place in your life, and there's so many other things to think about. And don't let those people bother you.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had any advice for people that are happening to. That's some good advice. Um, so I want to pivot a little bit and talk about this idea of personal brand. And obviously, you've got a brand. You hear a lot of people talk about personal brand. You hear a lot of people talking negatively about personal brand and how they think it's a stupid idea. I have my personal opinions. I happen to think it's a valuable thing for, people networking when you think about brand. I'm going to talk a little bit about that from your perspective. Is that something you've actively tried to cultivate? Do you feel like that's something you've thought about your personal brand, or do you feel like it's just sort of organically evolved? And what are your thoughts around that in general about personal brand? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel like personal brand is like a sense of like self-awareness. Like, what do you offer? What are your goal? What are your strengths that are different than anyone else? And how do you portray that on the internet? And it's something that always evolves at whatever stage of life you are at. But essentially, it's like, what's your value proposition? Like, what makes you stand out? So for me, like, I would describe, I feel like a lot of times people like complicate it. Like, oh, you need like a branding, like a visual style guide, what tone of
Yeah,
voice.
right.
But it's like ultimately all of y'all already have it. It's just a matter of like
Yeah.
understanding what your unique value proposition is and like how you want to express that and be yourself out there. So for me, for example, like I like to be fun. I like doing a lot of events, community stuff, and so everything I do is like fun. I want people to like be happy and have a laugh.
Hmm.
That's why I like dance on LinkedIn as part of that, and I draw like a lot
Yeah.
of like cute pastel bunnies and stuff to align with that as well, so people can like easily recognize it's me. I also feel like in this job market, a lot of people like are, I guess like this is like early 20s. I feel like with all the layoffs and like AI and all that jazz,
Mm.
um, standing out has is going to be more important than ever because there's so many designers in the job market that I can see, and you can. It's important to like have your skills, like design skills, like have a portfolio. Be always have good skills, but also making sure you're noticed because you could have the
Mm.
best. You could be a super skilled designer, but if no one knows who you are, you don't get anywhere. So being putting yourself out there and showcasing how unique you are has helped me land a lot of opportunities because like that's actually how I got my job at EA without applying is
Really?
I
Wow.
worked really hard on my skills and then I just like talked about it everywhere on LinkedIn and then I cold reached out to my hiring manager. So I already had skills, personal brand, and then networking and how I got jobs.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so you mentioned something too that I think I just want to call out is like it's not logos. It's not, style guides. It's not like visual design and making sure, it's just like you said, it's all about how you're remembered.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I feel like the people who just like who hate personal brand, when they say they hate personal brand, they say the exact same thing that the people who are promoting personal brand are saying. Is just be
Mm-hmm.
yourself. But the thing is, be yourself intentionally. Like, understand what that is. Like, be intentional about what being yourself means, if that makes sense, right? Like, it means like how do you talk? Like, what things will you talk about? What things won't you talk about? Like for me, for example, like my personal brand, I feel like, is probably like posting way longer things than I should. Like one of the reasons why I'm not on Twitter is I talk too much. I post too much. I can't say what I need to say in 220 characters or whatever it is. So like my posts tend to be longer. When I
Yes,
comment on people's
ChatGPT
posts,
shortened it for you.
yeah, I know. But then when
I
it
was gonna,
does, it sounds like freaking ChatGPT. It sounds terrible.
yeah.
But like when I do that, so like that's my thing. It's like, and I've had a bunch of people tell me like your posts are too long. You need to do more listicles. You need to do this or you need to do that. And it's like it doesn't sound authentic. It's not me. Like it works for all those other people, but it doesn't work for me. And that's somewhat similar. Like there are certain things like I will post about or won't post about on LinkedIn. Like I make it like I actively try to not complain on LinkedIn. And if I had Twitter, I'd be complaining about everything. That's where I would complain about. You know what I mean? But on LinkedIn, it's very different. Like, and so I always try to be positive, and I never try to like, I don't know, correct people on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Like call people out. I don't call people out. So like that's sort of it's active though. Me trying to do then actively saying like before I post something like, is that me? But it's also how I network. It's how I when I reach out to people. It's not about the tone and voice necessarily. And I feel like so many people just sort of forget. It's like it happens. Your brand is there whether you design it or not, or whether you're intentional about it or not. And I feel like so many people just ignore that and just sort of let it be. And it's very similar to me to like customer service or customer experience or UX. It's like the users have an experience. The customers have an experience, whether the team has been actively thinking about it or not. And you could let it happen and hope for the best, or you could actively try to cultivate that experience, just like you said, so that you do stand out among the sea of other people trying to fit in, you know?
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I just love that you said that. I know that's something like I hadn't really thought about before, is like the visual design piece. That's what so many people think of.
Overcomplicate things. You can
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
if you want. Well, you don't have to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's maybe part of the problem is like advertising is sort of bastardized brand, or maybe not bastardized. They've made it to where we assume a brand is a logo, right? And it's like, that's not like somebody who's a reason I saw a post online. It's like, if Nike opened up a hotel, right? You know what that hotel would look like, right? If Hyatt opened a shoe company or started a shoe company, you have no idea what those shoes would look like. Like, what is Hyatt? It's just like a bunch of freaking hotels. But Nike has a brand. Like, that's the brand. It's not, you know what I mean? So I can't remember. I saw that the other day online somewhere. But that just kind of makes me think about that. Like, it's like how you make people feel. And you mentioned, the layoffs and stuff right now. And it's like thousands of people are applying for the same job. If you're lucky, 100 people have applied to that same job. The chances are incredibly high that 90% of them are perfectly qualified for that job. How do you stand out among the other 89 perfectly qualified candidates? And I feel like, to me, it's this networking, it's the brand, it's like how you make those people interviewing you feel, and they say, oh, I really like Grace. I like talking to Grace. Like she had some really interesting things to say, and that's like how, you make people feel when they talk to you. And so many people just ignore that. I don't know. I hate that. It drives me crazy.
People just try to mold themselves as a template. They try to be the same and like forget about who they are. Yeah.
So here's what I want to ask you about. When we think about personal brand, I went on like a soliloquy or a monologue there for a long time. I'll probably cut some of that. But when we talk about personal brand, what are some advice for up and coming designers to help foster their own brand, to find it, to, encourage it or whatever? What is some advice that you might have for helping to come up with that idea in the first place?
Yeah, like reflecting on your interests and backgrounds. Like, for example, you're interested in working in the games industry or interested in working in like health tech, and finding like what about your interests and what about your background aligns to that industry. Because I feel like it's a way to stand out when you're applying for jobs and stuff, to highlight why you're specifically interested in this job. Just kind of like share experiences and create content about that. I also feel like personal brand, it's like something you can find over time. So I like to think of myself as like doing things and telling people about it. So I'm like always going to events, talking to new people, doing new projects, and then talking about it on LinkedIn and seeing what goes from there. So it's a combination of like reflecting on what you would want to do and what you're curious about working on, and telling people about that, and doing things that are relevant to your niche, your interest, your topic area, and then telling people about that as well. And also, like, don't feel like you can just start today. Like right now, your action item for everyone today, if you never post on LinkedIn, make an introduction post. Say like, hey, I am name. I am a UX designer. I like doing this. My background is in this, and I'm looking to connect with people who are in this. So something like that, something really simple. So like action item for that, and then like see who comments, see who reaches out, and then just kind of go from there. But just do it. Like, don't overcomplicate things. Like, you already have your brand. Don't let all these like logos, fanciness like stop you from doing it. Just, you got this.
I love that.
If you make a LinkedIn post, introduction post, tag Jeremy, tag Grace, we'd love to like
seriously.
Yeah.
Do it. Hell yeah. I love to know. Please tag me. I'll even repost it. So one of the things that I think is interesting too, you kind of called this out a little while ago. I want to kind of tie it back to what you said originally. It's this idea of personal brand. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you was really about making LinkedIn fun. But that's your personal brand. Like, so when we think about personal brand, it's not like you have to mimic Grace. You don't have to be like Grace. That works for Grace. It might not work for you. So finding that thing that you want to show the world, you want to, that face that you want to share to the world, and actively, reinforce it over time. The other thing that I think is really interesting, and you mentioned this, like, you don't ask for permission and stuff, and I want to tie it back to that, is one of the things that I think a lot of people kind of overlook with the personal brand is it's your opportunity to weed the companies out that you don't want to work for in the first place. And so when you go on and you have fun and you dance and stuff, I imagine part of what you're thinking is, I would never want to work for a company that wouldn't want me to dance on LinkedIn. Right?
Yes.
Like,
Oh my God. Yeah.
and I think that's something like so many people like overlook. Like, we have the power as employees to turn down a job that we don't want. Now, there's certain scenarios where you can't and you don't want to because you need the money. And there's certainly a level of privilege that goes along with that. I think I want to call that out. Some people can't afford to turn down jobs. But if you are in a place where you can be more selective, be more selective. Like, don't get a job where you're going to feel like, posting about your side hustle on LinkedIn is going to get you in trouble. Don't be afraid to get a job where, like, you say something wrong and you get reprimanded for it at work. Like, if that's what you believe, you want to find a place where they will embrace that. And it might take some time to find. It might mean you aren't as, I don't know what the right word is, aren't as impressive to some companies, right? And some companies won't want to hire you. But you may end up looking more impressive and more desirable to the companies who do want that. And I think that's part of personal brand for me, is weeding out the companies that, wouldn't want me to do those things. Because I feel like, we talk about toxicity at work. We talk about, bringing your authentic self to work. We talk about, finding those companies that match your goals and everything else. And I feel like this is a great way to just sort of like weed those companies out so you never get the offer in the first place, and you don't have to deal with it. I don't know, I'm curious, have you ever thought about that? Is that something you've kind of thought about?
Yeah, I feel like for me, I don't mind connecting with like anyone, but like I would never want to work for an environment where they disallow me to do any side hustles and public
Mm-hmm.
speaking and stuff. So like, yeah, I guess so. Because I feel like when you're interviewing with companies, you're just as much interviewing them as well, and you want to
Yes.
find a
Yes.
place that will respect you and value you for who you are, and you want to work for an environment where you feel like you can just be yourself and not have to change yourself to fit in and be
Mm-hmm.
successful in that environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And mental health, I mean, I should have mentioned this before, but like, mental health is so important. And I feel like it's something we've been talking a lot more about, especially after the pandemic. Mental health is such an important thing. If you can find a job where you don't have to worry about your mental health in the first place,
Mhm.
it's just it's a fun environment. You don't have to worry about, taking mental health days because you didn't need them in the first place because you feel fine, you enjoy work. And that's certainly easier said than done. Again, there's a certain level of sort of privilege there. It's finding the balance, to scare off just the right number of employees so that you're not scaring off every employee, potential
Mhm.
employer. And I think there's a level of balance there that, I don't know, I think some people maybe take it too far sometimes and they scare off the companies they would have wanted to work for. So anyway, I don't know. This is sort of a personal thing. I think you have to reflect on that and decide like what's comfortable for you and what's not.
And what are your goals for posting stuff? And as I feel like my
Yeah.
my guidelines, like as long as I'm not harming anyone, it all goes out. As long as it doesn't harm anyone.
Yeah. All right, cool. So the last thing I want to talk to you about today is just like final thoughts, like advice for some junior designers, career shifters. You just sort of, I think what you just said is a little bit of advice. You probably might repeat or whatever, but advice for junior designers, career shifters looking to potentially get on social media, to be themselves, to have more fun when it comes to networking. Any advice that you'd give some people that are just sort of like been wallflowers the whole time, standing, lurking in the shadows and not really engaging? What's some advice for them?
Yeah, kind of two things. Like first, make that intro post and tag us so we can engage
I
with
love
it
that
and
idea.
see who connects with
Yeah,
you.
you're right.
And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that will give you a lot of motivation to keep posting on LinkedIn to connect with others and like kind of frame it as your goal is connection. Like don't have any expectations going in, but the goal should be making friends and then see how you can help each other and see how that goes. So that intro post, and also keep doing things like doing design challenges, doing events, and talking about that on LinkedIn. So just keep posting on LinkedIn and see who comes. And I feel like it's like a muscle. I feel like content creation and networking, it didn't really come naturally to me. Like I've been doing it
Yes,
for
I
many
want to.
years
Yeah.
now. but it's like a muscle
That's
you can
important.
build. You might see someone post on LinkedIn, like both of us, Jeremy and Grace, like we might post like every day on LinkedIn, and you might feel like, oh my God, I can't do that. But like just start small, like start posting like once a week, once every two
Hmm.
weeks, and then as you kind of improve your writing muscles, you'll get better at that. And I feel like posting on LinkedIn and having is really valuable for opportunities to come to you instead of you seeking them out too, as well
Yeah.
as improving your communication skills, your writing skills, which will help you in your career. Because like posting on LinkedIn has given me like better writing skills so I can better write my design documentation, better collaborate
Yes.
effectively. So I think of it as like
Yes.
career development as well, not just like for the clout, but for your actual tangible skills.
That is
And also,
brilliant advice. I
yeah,
love that. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Also, I feel like posting on LinkedIn has given me a lot of like weird opportunities. I have like a funny story I can share as well.
Oh, please do.
That's
That's
the
what we're
thing
here
with
for.
that. Like,
That's why we're
I
here.
didn't,
Funny stories.
yeah, I wasn't sure you were gonna get into that question, but it's like the shit posting about like using Hinge for networking. But like, yeah, so like I feel like personal branding, it's not limited to LinkedIn. I'll say that. And it's not limited to like you can do it on like Instagram and Twitter, and I have like wild stories about how my like shit posts that align to my brand
Yes.
has got to be featured on like the Times Square and Wall Street Journal for like a very random reason. So I guess like the example I wanted to give that ended up having a feature post about me for the Wall Street Journal is I was like using Hinge for networking and I was shit
Yeah,
posting
I
that
totally
on the
forgot to ask you this. Oh God, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much.
yeah.
You're bringing it back. Good. Okay, good, good, good.
And
Yeah, let's
like
talk about this. All right, I
yeah,
love this idea.
what to allude to is like it's not just about your career. Like you can take the randomest shit you do out there, like using Hinge for networking, and then like it'll put you on the walls
That is so funny.
again. It actually has to do with UX. Yeah,
Let's hear it.
like I feel like being post on social media essentially about anything, not just a career. It can like randomly get you featured on like for me, posting on LinkedIn got me featured on Times Square, and posting on Twitter has got me featured on Wall Street Journal and more. But yeah, I guess like
That's
to
yeah.
sum it up, the advice
So
it's like,
you mentioned
oh, go ahead.
yeah. So you mentioned Hinge, and this is so funny. When I heard that you did that, I was like, I'm curious, like, what made you think of that? How did you? Where did that idea come from? Like, I
Yeah,
would have never been like, let me go on Tinder and try to network and
yeah.
find clients for freelance work. Or I'm just like, what made you? What made you do that?
Fair.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Never gonna have it on dating apps too. So like that's tough. But like I'm gonna just preface this by saying that I'm a kid. So I'll preface this by saying that my parents might be listening right now and they don't know any of this, but I'm very unhinged. I'm like very unfiltered. So like I'm gonna be sharing this story for y'all today.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Grace's parents, cover your ears if you're listening. Cover your ears, earmuffs.
so like this is like UX and networking too. So growing up, I was very sheltered. Both parents, PhDs, no dating
Oh
until
wow,
after
okay.
PhD. Yeah.
Oh my
Um,
god, jeez. No dating. It was like when you're 30. Like that's.
basically.
Oh
Um,
god.
And I remember, so I was trying to get into UX design at the end of 2019 when I was like graduating from college, and I was interviewing for this tech company, and their prompt the interview assignment was to do a design challenge, and the prompt was design a mentor and mentee matching app for college students. I was like, all right, college students matching. Okay, what do they use? Competitive analysis, downloads, dating.
Oh, that's so
And I like
brilliant. Yeah.
yeah, I was like struggling to get a job in tech, and like I like strategically match with folks like a lot of software engineers at FANG companies, and they give me referrals, and I got some interviews from that. Um,
Wow. Damn.
and
That's crazy.
and my parents do not know this, but like I actually have met my ex on Facebook dating, and he was
Oh, no way. So, oh, this is funny. This is gonna. I've been married now for 12 or 13 years. I had no idea there was a Facebook dating app. There's a Facebook dating app, like a separate app. Really? I had no idea. That's news to me.
part of
Okay.
the mobile app, but like one of the tabs. It was like
I
really
did not
popular
know
in
this.
2019. And I don't
Really?
know, I would like find people on there that are
It's just
mutual
weird. It's
friends
like the
with.
same
Yeah.
app your grandma and your aunts and uncles and parents are on, and you're like in a dating app? That's so weird. That's such a bizarre. See, to me, that's just some random product manager coming with ideas. Like, oh, we need, this is like Feature Factory. This is like, just no. That's so weird. That's weird. Facebook dating.
Hmm.
That's so bizarre. It's like, hey, there's Uncle Frank. He's on the date. It's just like, what are you doing on here for Uncle Frank? I thought you were happily married. It's just so weird.
It will match you with people you're not friends with yet, though. So, and they will like the algorithm is like find people who are in similar groups as you and like match you there.
But what if
Which,
like you're yeah, I mean, like, okay, well, I guess they're using like all kinds of crazy like data about you that you probably didn't even know they were
yeah,
collecting. But like, I don't know. I guess that's true because they're like, if you would show up on you might know this person list, don't show up in Facebook. It's like the opposite. If doesn't show up, I can imagine that like conditional logic in the background to show the one list versus the other. It's like if not appears on whatever. That's so funny. Oh my God.
hmm
That's hilarious.
yeah.
I can't believe I had no idea Facebook had that. Okay. Sorry. I
I know.
interrupted you. Go ahead. I didn't mean to.
No
It's just
worries,
really
no
funny.
worries. It's funny how like, my ex worked at Facebook and he told me he was like quote unquote testing the app. But like this is funny because like I ended up breaking up with him because I wanted to focus on design buddies and personal branding on LinkedIn. This is like back in 2020. So that was like a funny story I can tell. And then this is so random, but when I turned 25 last year, I remember my parents were like, "So you gotta think about your partner now," and I was like, "But I'm married to my work. I'm married to design buddies.
It's like I got engaged and everything. Look at this ring he bought me.
I don't have to have a PhD. Not because I care about what they want from me
Yeah.
anymore." Um,
I feel
so
like
it's
you wouldn't make nearly
mhm,
as much money with a PhD. Well, maybe
I
in
really
tech you
think
would, I
so.
guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe in
I
tech
don't.
you could pay, but
Yeah, I don't think I want a
most
PhD.
PhDs
Like
now.
it's so
I
much
mean,
time,
how many?
too
Yeah,
much studying.
well, that's a lot of
Yeah.
money too. I mean, it's like insane. I mean,
Hmm.
unless you depends on what school you go to, obviously. But like, I imagine you'd probably go to like Stanford or something like that, which I'm sure is not cheap. Um,
Yeah.
UC Berkeley
Yeah.
or something. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's cool.
And then in 2013, 20, I'm not 2013, 20, so I downloaded Hinge. And the reason why I did that was I was like, it was on Valentine's Day. So I was with my female friends and we were just like chatting about like their experiences on Hinge. And I was like, oh, I haven't dated in like 3 years. Like, what is this? Because I feel like when I broke up with my ex, like I wanted to focus on myself. Like I felt like a lot of imposter syndrome. I want to build myself up first, like really find who Grace is, strong, independent woman. And so I was like, I just made sure that was a thing I had. And I feel like 2023 was a very formative year for me. Like, I feel like now I'm just like vibing and thriving after like feeling like an imposter for so long. And I was like, all right, I guess like maybe I'll like try this and see what happens. And for me, um, I'm like an avid networker. So like my experience using Hinge from like February to like November was oh I was like kind of in a mindset of like hey I'm like down to like network make friends and see where it goes so I interviewed like I had like 30 in-person interviews. I call them interviews like dates basically but interviews because I
Oh, that is so funny. Oh, I mean, isn't that kind of what like a first date is? It's sort of like an interview, right? I don't know. I know like a lot of people will compare interviewing to dating and recruiting and stuff to
oh
dating. It's
yeah
so funny.
yeah
Oh, yeah, why not
because like
make it both ways?
it's
That's
like
really funny.
it's like a behavioral interview and then sometimes you want to do some technical interview like see how they're good at performing the skill and then a group interview and
Yes. Oh, that's so smart. That's hilarious. It is. It is. That's so funny. Oh, that's so funny. The technical interview. I love the technical interview. That is brilliant. So
hmm
did he get hired? I guess did he get an offer?
yeah I'm doing like 30 people because I'm like really picky. I'm like for me, I try not to have a type, like try to be open minded. And I really did my due diligence and try to research during interviews as
Did you get a
many like
referral and like ask for
yeah,
referrals?
referrals and stuff as well.
A reference. Sorry, a reference. I was. Yeah, did you get a reference? Yeah, reference
Yeah,
check,
I did
background check,
a
credit
referral
check.
and a background check too. So I also like on my experiences on Hinge, like I like because I a lot of people on when I was using dating apps back in 2019 giving me referrals to tech companies, I met some people who were laid off and I wanted to give back. Like so I gave them referrals to EA. Like full
Yeah.
circle, right? Because I was cool. So I was like, oh, I just want to help
Yeah, it's
them.
great. I
Because
love
like
it.
yeah. So I've done that like full circle. And then I was like kind of shit posting on LinkedIn, like, haha, look, I'm using Hinge for networking. And like it's so funny because a lot of people on Hinge, they knew me from LinkedIn and Design Buddies. Like I wasn't like romantically interested, but I would just like still match with them so I can say like hi, just like for shits and giggles.
Oh wow.
Uh,
Yeah. I guess you are somewhat of a celebrity, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, people are. I guess if they're UX designers, they probably know design. But I mean, 60,000 people, that's a lot. The
Hmm.
chances are good there's people out there that aren't even a part of Design Buddies, but still know of it. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah. I
you.
didn't recognize every
Anyway,
tech
a lot
event
of
I
people
go
probably
to.
know you.
Yeah.
I know that's crazy.
Yeah. So that was funny, and I was just like shitposting on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm not on LinkedIn. I was shitposting on Twitter about using
Hmm.
LinkedIn. I'm using Hinge for networking, and then the Wall Street Journal found me. They did an interview, and I got a feature piece. Like I was the first feature using Hinge for networking. It was so funny. I was so proud of it that I posted it on LinkedIn about like, hey, I'm excited to announce I got featured on Wall Street Journal for using Hinge for networking. And then my dad reposted it on his LinkedIn and Facebook.
Did he realize what Hinge was though? Did he not know? I guess at that point, who everybody just reads the headlines anyway. No one ever reads the article. That's fine. You get
Job seekers that have to dating apps or something about that.
that is so funny. Well, if that's the headline, yeah. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody reads the actual article.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. No, that's so funny. Oh, I love that. All right. So Grace, we've been talking to you for a while now. Before we get out of here, any parting words of wisdom? Anything we didn't cover that you think is really important when we talk about networking, having a good time networking, LinkedIn, whatever? Any parting advice for everybody listening out there before we jump into some stuff? I got some questions to ask you.
Yeah, for sure, just do it. Like I feel like just make an intro post, less thinking, more execution. Don't worry about being perfect. I feel like life is all about learning, iterating, and just launching things, doing it. And don't overthink things. Just do it. You already got what you
Just
have,
do
and
it.
hope you slay and vibe and thrive.
Just do it. Slay,
Mhm.
vibe, thrive. That's it.
Yes.
Parting words of wisdom from Grace Ling. All right, Grace. So before we get out of here, I got some questions that we like to ask all of our guests. We got 5 questions, just some simple stuff to help all our listeners get to know you a little bit better. But before we do that, why don't you give yourself a plug? Let everybody listening out there know where they can find you, follow you, Design Buddies, connect with Design Buddies, and all that stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm Grace Ling on LinkedIn. And also I run Grace Pace on Instagram, just like I run, and then Grace Leaf with the underscore on Twitter. I'm also on TikTok and YouTube, just my names. I think TikTok is great as Candy Leaf. And on Design Buddies, you can just check out Design Buddies on Discord. Just search Design Buddies to show up on Google. Real website, designbuddies.community. We also have on our own social media, have a newsletter and everything as well. So yeah, I
Right
also
on.
do a
And
lot
you
of like
have
talks. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and you have a podcast that as of releasing this, the
Mhm.
podcast would have been out, I think, right?
It's called
Um,
Down the Rabbit Hole. We deep
there you
dive
go.
into topics in tech and AI
Right
and
on.
the implications of it all.
Hell yeah, fascinating stuff. All right, cool. So we'll link to all that stuff in the show notes. And so make sure to check out the show notes at beyonduxdesign.com for all those links to find Grace, connect with Grace, and all that stuff. One thing I actually meant to, I was thinking of this as you mentioned, do that introduction post. I'm going to throw in a little incentive. You do an introduction post, you tag me and Grace. I'll send you a free badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker. Just shoot me a DM or tag me and I'll shoot you a DM after you do that. We'll see how many people listen this far into the episode if anybody actually does
Amazing.
that.
No,
All right,
yeah, well, just,
little incentive. Get your badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker. All right, great. So we got a few questions that I like to ask all my guests to help all my listeners get to know my guests a little bit better. First up, what is your favorite non-design book?
hmm, book. I liked like 4 Hour Work Week. It taught me how to work smart, not
Hmm.
hard. And Rich Dad Poor Dad taught me investing mindsets.
Right on. I love that. Yeah, that's really good. Two very important things that most younger professionals don't even think about until it's too late. So those are really good. I love that. What is your favorite non-design podcast?
I like Sounds Like a Cult. They deep dive into modern day cults, like the cult of Elon Musk, cult of Taylor Swift, cult of
Oh, right
um,
on.
yeah, cult of
So
veganism, cult of
so like things you wouldn't think of as like a cult, but still are kind of culty.
yeah,
Oh, that's really
yeah,
cool.
cult of
Sounds like a
AI
cult.
too. Yeah, I know, I love it.
I have never heard of that. This is like an actual cult, but I just started watching this documentary on Netflix about Twin Flame Universe or Twin Flame something or other. You ever heard of this? It's
I'm
like a
not.
cult, like a Facebook cult, and they're like an internet cult. So
Hmm.
anyway, it's like they're like thousands of dollars you have to pay for these courses, and it's like finding your twin flame, your soulmate, kind of.
I'll
But
check it
they're
out.
like, yeah, it's like super bizarre, and they've had made people get like gender transition surgeries and stuff that like didn't want it. It's just like super freaking weird. Anyway, sounds like a cult. That sounds like something I'd be
Mhm.
into. I'm gonna check that out. All right, what is your favorite meal? This could be something you've cooked, something you've eaten out somewhere, something your grandma used to cook. Could be anything. Best thing
I
you've ever
like
eaten.
sushi. I like
Sushi.
sushi.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
I
have
think they have a
you have
colorful and
yeah.
aesthetic.
You guys out
It has.
in Silicon Valley, California, probably got some pretty fresh, nice tasting sushi and stuff.
Mhm.
I love that. I'm in Cincinnati in the middle of Midwest, and it's funny. We went somewhere and they had seafood. I was like, "Where do you guys get your seafood?" And they said,
Where did
"The
they get
airport.
it?
The
Oh.
airport. It comes from the airport
Mhm.
overnight from probably somewhere." But yeah, it's all at least a couple days old.
Mhm.
Don't eat seafood in Cincinnati. All right. What's your favorite vacation spot?
Ooh, I've been to like 20 countries in 2023, and I liked it a lot. I feel like I love new spots. I like to
You've
explore new
traveled quite a
places.
bit. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
spent
pretty
like
impressive.
three months traveling last year for fun
That's
and for
awesome.
business. I really liked Santorini and Mykonos, like the
Oh
Greek
yeah,
islands, because it's like you got like the nice houses that it's very
yeah, it's so
aesthetic, and
pretty.
it's like the
Yeah.
mountains, the nature, the hiking, the ocean, the vibes. I also really like Singapore. I've been there over 10 times. My dad's in Singapore, but I like that
Okay.
place as well. It's like nice tropical tech as well as nature, good vibes, lots of things to do, things to see. It's like yes, Greek islands and Singapore as I liked.
That's awesome. I had the opportunity to go to Singapore for work, but I didn't go because I had just gotten back from another big trip for like a 2 week trip, and I was like, I can't go to that. And then I was like, I'll go
Mm,
next time. And then that I never got a chance to go. But
mm.
Singapore's such a cool city state. I
Yeah,
guess it is. It's just like
yeah.
super cool.
I was like the Caribbean. I just came back from it like 5 days ago.
Oh
Snorkeling
yeah,
in the Atlantic.
you like to cruise. That's something I don't think we mentioned that in
I
your
guess like
bio, but you've been
oh yeah,
cruising a
I feel
lot.
like cruising. I feel like I cruise too much. Like I literally spent last year living 2 months on a cruise ship, and I think I like cruises, but in moderation now. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Why is that? Is it because they're monotonous, or do you feel like it's not the money? Is it the money, or is it just the you're stuck on a
Oh
boat for so much
no,
time, or
stuck
why do
on a
you?
boat. I like
Okay.
land. Feel like I probably tried different cruise lines as well, but like I feel like every day was like Groundhog Day on Sea Day because the brand that I rolled with, they try to keep everything consistent so the passengers don't complain, which I understand. But like it makes all the events, the food the same. And I because
Right.
I
Yeah.
spent like
Yeah.
probably like 1 month total living on similar cruise ships. I was like, this feels the same. But like I love cruises because they're like a floating city and they can take you to many different countries in a very short time. So I
Yeah.
like it as like a
Yeah.
transportation. And like it's pretty luxurious as well for like in my opinion, like a good price. Um
Yeah. Yeah, it's generally relatively
hmm.
inexpensive for what you get.
Yeah, for what you
Yeah.
yeah, that's why.
That's
But
cool.
yeah.
I actually
And
I've always wanted to do, and it's like super expensive, but like one of those like European river cruises, like
oh
Viking
yes,
river
I did
cruises or
Viking. Oh
something.
my God, I went on that
Did you
one.
do
Yeah.
one?
Highly
How was that? Was
recommend.
that fun?
It's
Was it
yeah,
good?
it was so fun. I loved like how we got to go on land and how there was a different city to explore every day.
Yeah.
The interesting part of it was like everyone was literally like older than like 50
I
or
know
60.
everybody seems so
Yeah,
old.
I was actually the youngest person on the group.
You know what's funny? My dad, he's 70 now, and this was like when I was in college. This was like 2003, maybe. So he was in his 50s, I guess, back then. And he and my stepmom did a paddle wheel cruise from New Orleans up to Nashville, I think it was.
Mhm.
And I was going to LSU at the time in Baton Rouge, and it stops in Baton Rouge, so it takes like a whole day to go like 50 miles. So
Mhm.
they go up to New Orleans, and he's like, "Yeah, do you want to come on the boat? We're gonna have lunch on the boat." And I was like, "Sure, I'll go." My dad was the youngest person on that boat. He was like in his 50s.
Wow. Yeah,
No,
that
it's
seems like
funny.
it.
Yeah, because like I only really know about Viking River cruises because my wife and I would watch Downton Abbey on PBS, and they would always advertise Viking River cruises before Downton Abbey, and I feel like it's one of those things like we're probably like the youngest people watching Downton Abbey right now. Like, always.
Yeah.
It's so funny you mentioned that because my wife and I talked about doing it at some point, and we were like, I bet we'd be the youngest people on those boats, and you've
But
confirmed that for me. But
I liked how they focus on a lot of culture and history though. Like
Yeah.
I've been on the opposite. I've been on Virgin Voyages as well. It's like an adult party boat. It's so fun, but like they don't it's all like partying and wild parties and like fun excursions and stuff. And Princess
Right.
is
It's
kind of
not like
like in
history.
between. I feel like different cruise lines give different very different vibes. So I feel like the
Yeah.
cruise
Yeah.
lines
Yeah.
are like every single type of cruiser, but it's also yeah, I don't know. It's fun to explore. There's a lot of cruise lines out there.
Well, the thing I like about the idea of like not necessarily the American river cruise because there's probably not a lot to see, but like with European river cruises,
Mm.
I feel like there's just a ton of stuff to see.
Yeah.
Big beautiful like old cathedrals or buildings
Yes.
or castles or
Castles.
something. And so that's one thing I always thought was like really interesting, like when one of the rivers in like the in Germany or the Danube or something.
Oh yeah, I went on Danube. Yeah.
Yeah, is that where you went? Yeah, and that one
Yeah.
I was it's a big river, but the one I'm thinking of like it goes through like Budapest and stuff, and it's like really
Oh,
pretty,
I
but
went
there's
there
like stuff
too.
to
Yeah.
see,
Hmm.
So like it's not like a Caribbean cruise where you just like when you're at sea, you literally see the sea for like 2 days or whatever. But this one you can
Hmm.
actually see it's like really pretty and there's something. Anyway, I love that. At some point in the future. I'm gonna do a Viking river cruise. At that point I probably won't be the youngest person on those boats anymore, but we'll see. I'll give you a
They're
full
fun.
report. I'll
Highly
give you a full report.
recommend. Yeah.
Highly recommend. All right.
Mhm.
Last question. What is your favorite design tool that is not Figma?
I liked I like hmm I like Adobe Fresco and Procreate, the illustration tools on the iPad.
Ah,
I like
okay.
how
I've never
I've
used
been
them.
using Procreate for a while, but Adobe Fresco, like you can like make vector graphics like freehand. Because like I used to like make
Oh,
vector graphics
cool.
through Illustrator, I had like click mouse, but like I like the freehand stuff, so like I
Yeah, you
like
got the
that
pencil,
aspect.
the Apple Pencil and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. I
That's
like
really cool.
that.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
That's really cool. I've never had an iPad. So
Mhm.
I try to like draw and stuff on like with a mouse, and it's absolutely terrible. I usually just live trace crap on Illustrator. I am really
Mhm.
good with a pen tool though. I can the Bezier pen tool. Watch out. A lot of
Oh,
practice
nice.
there of my years in
Not really good at it.
advertising.
I'm
Yeah,
more into hand drawing, but I need
yeah,
to practice. All my goals is to get good at Illustrator.
yeah. Back in the day, I used to be in advertising before I got in UX design, and we would get random pictures for crap, and like it would have a background, and that client would be like, "Put this on like a different color background." It's just, like going over
Mm.
like all these like random things. We had like a company that did like industrial machinery, and they wanted to put it on a white background. They took a picture, it's like full of mud and everything else, and they're like, "Can you Photoshop the mud off and can you put it on like a white background?" I'm like, it doesn't work like that. It's not how
Mhm.
this works. But going and like tracing anyway, I got really good at the Bezier pen tool. Completely useless now for UX design, but for advertising, masking out random shapes, it was wonderful. But anyway,
Nice.
all right, cool. All right, Grace. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us on the Beyond UX Design podcast. I really appreciate your insights. Anybody listening out there, if you're thinking about posting online, LinkedIn especially, it does not have to be stuffy. Please just don't think of LinkedIn as like I wish LinkedIn paid me to say this kind of stuff. I feel like I deserve to get some damn money from
I
LinkedIn,
think
all the
so
money they're
too.
making. All the
Mhm.
freaking money they're making off their stupid LinkedIn premium for $50 a month. I feel like I should get a cut. But anyway, LinkedIn, it's not your grandpa's LinkedIn anymore. There's, fun stuff going on LinkedIn. If you're apprehensive about going on LinkedIn, I promise it's a fun place to be. I have a lot of fun. I post on it probably way too much. My wife tells me I'm addicted to it. But anyway, Grace, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate your insights. It was awesome to have you.
Thanks so much. It was so much fun, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely.